Welcome and thank you to the last talk of the day here at the Upper Valley Electric Vehicle Expo 2023. Yay! Good turnout today, and the clouds went away, so hooray for that. We are joined online by some people who are attending remotely, and we are recording this session. For anyone who pre-registered, I will be sending out links to where you can see it, but you can always find those links and other information on the Electric Vehicle Subcommittee page of the Lebanon Energy Advisory Committee. It's basically lebanonnh.gov/EV, lebanonnh.gov/EV. So you can always refer back to any of these talks today. So today we have 4 people here to talk about what's ahead. We're going to try and keep it brief, 5 to 10 minutes each, so we can have a little discussion at the end. But I'm going to let each of us introduce ourselves. Adams, you want to start?
Sure. My name is Adams Carroll. I am the Executive Director of Advanced Transit.
Hi, I'm Dana Clawson. I'm the Environmental Sustainability Coordinator for the town of Hartford, Vermont.
And I'm Ben Steele. I'm on the Energy Subcommittee of Sustainable Hanover, and I lead a group of people working with EVs.
And I'm Sherry Boschert, Chair of the EV Subcommittee for the City of Lebanon and co-founder of the national nonprofit Plug in America. If you have any questions from all of your experience today, you can probably find the answer at pluginamerica.org. There's other good sites online too. But we're going to talk individually about our communities and then maybe talk together in general. Who wants to go first? Anyone? Adams, you want to start? Talk about what Advanced Transit is doing?
Sure, I can start. I was hoping I'd get to go last, but I'm ready. No, so I figured I would just talk a little bit about what our plans are for the bus system, where we're at today, and then what's coming down the line, since we're talking about the future of EVs in the Upper Valley. And, recognizing that for some people, either who don't have a car today or who, even with all of the incentives that are available, an EV still might be out of reach, doesn't mean that you can't enjoy an electric vehicle, because we actually have 2 electric buses out on the streets today that have been in service since March, and they just run along our regular routes like the diesel buses that you've probably seen around town do. And we've been really impressed with them so far. I think the range has been more than enough to cover the need that we have for it. I was just looking at we have one parked outside. At an 80% state of charge, it was telling me that it had 192 miles of range left, which is actually a lot more than what the advertised capacity was. So they're really suitable and capable for the type of in-town transportation that we do. And our plan is to continue as our diesel buses age out to just replace them with EVs. For us right now, it's the kind of economic incentives are so favorable. Even though the electric buses cost more on their sticker price, there's more subsidy available for a lower or no emission bus than there would be for a diesel. So we ended up spending about $66,000 on each of the electric buses out of the total price. That's less than some people are paying for a Tesla. And they're expensive buses, but when you factor in the state and the federal reimbursement, we're only paying for 7.5% of the total cost of them, compared to a diesel where we might have to pay 20% of the cost of that bus. So even though it's cheaper, it actually ends up costing us more. Most of our buses are relatively new. Most of our fleet was replaced in 2018 or 2019, and they last for 12 to 14 years. Depending on road salt and that kind of stuff, and just how much corrosion that we see on the frame. So that puts us around 2035, 2037 to when the last diesel buses will retire. And I think it's going to be an exciting couple of years. We have 2 more electric buses that'll be delivered in the spring, and every time that we bring in new buses, we are adding in chargers. So we have 2 level 3 chargers right now. And when the new buses come in, we'll add another level 3 charger with 2 dispensers. And we've actually been investing in infrastructure upgrades at our facility to support the next 10 years of electric vehicle charging. We added in a new transformer, new switchgear, new conduit and cables running throughout the building so that when the bus is delivered, we have everything in place. We just need to plop the charger in and we're ready to go. And that's been, that's been a very exciting project, but it's not without challenges. I think the biggest thing that we ran into with that is we put it out to bid last year, and the first time around, we did not get any responses, which is rare. So we started asking around to some of the firms that had expressed interest, and they were telling us, we have enough work for the next 2 or 3 years. We just don't have the capacity to bid for anything else right now. And I have a little bit of a fear that that will be, just an increasing problem, especially as, some of these great incentives and programs come online that encourage more people to think about electrifying. There's only so many electricians, and we probably need more of them today. So we're only going to need more. The other big challenge for us, and I think that other fleets are going to run into this, is it's, theoretically, these are a lower maintenance vehicle over their lifespan, but it's a different type of maintenance that you need to be trained in and you need to learn. The new buses are basically rolling computers. They have so many special electronics and systems and radios and things like that, that it's an entirely new skill set, compared to a relatively old school diesel system. And there's also, high voltage components and batteries and things like that we're choosing at this point to send in for warranty if we need to do anything with them, rather than, cracking open that egg ourselves. But that's something that we're going to have to develop more capacity and skill in, and we will do as we add more EVs into the fleet. I think that, it's a great time for somebody who's looking to get into becoming a mechanic or an electrician, because you're pretty much guaranteed to have a lot of really lucrative business for the next couple of years. But that's definitely one of the challenges right now for us.
Thank you, Adams. Yeah, I sometimes speak at universities as an author, and whenever I have a chance to talk to young people anywhere, I say, you know what? Electricians will save the world. Mm-hmm. Go be an electrician. We really need you. Dana, what's happening in Hartford?
So, we see some things that people are seeing everywhere. Things are changing. And I think what's great about Hartford is folks realize that we can, shake our tiny fist at the change or get prepared for it, but we're going to get run over if we, sit there complaining about stuff nonstop. I think it's going to be interesting to look at how the adoption of each EVs is going to impact infrastructure. Already right now they're putting I'm putting town hall on what's called a flexible load management program, so that during peak events, we will preheat the building and then let it coast. And I think as more EVs come online, you're going to see more options like that from the utilities, because I think there's some concern over grid resiliency. And I had lived in California. Well, you lived in California during the rolling blackouts. We don't want to redo that. So, and I think one of the things that I'm thinking about too with EVs and other stuff is, the need for STEM education and stuff like that. We've been running some heat pump trainings and stuff of that nature in Hartford through the Vermont Adult Learning Association. But now I'm starting to look at what do we need to do for EVs. I just registered our mechanic for a EV training class that Vermont Clean Cities Coalition is starting to do in Vermont. So they're going to run a series of 4 classes, after which point the students will be able to take a course, or say an ASE, I believe is the Association for Vehicle Certification, so they can be certified to work on electric vehicles. And I think Vermont Clean Cities Coalition is going to start running that class more often. But these are kind of things that I'm thinking about. I have some funds in my budget to cover that, but I don't have the full funds to cover all of it. So I'm going to ask for more of that for next year so we can get guys certified, because we don't want to send our vehicles out for every little thing. We have a Nissan Leaf. It went off warranty, and 3 months later, I had to pay, I think we paid $400 something just for a regular car battery to be changed because our technicians don't have the diagnostic equipment or understanding of how to deal with those voltage systems. Other stuff that's going on more specifically to the Upper Valley is, you know, I think there's gonna be a lot of opportunity and need for partnerships. We talk to Lebanon sometimes about, hey, you know, as we move into this, let's make sure that our electric emergency vehicles can accept the same charging systems. So if your grid goes down, you can come to us and vice versa. If our grid goes down, we can go to you guys. You know, I think the other thing that's going to be interesting about the Upper Valley is the 89-91 split. I think there's going to be a lot of potential there for economic development, both for folks that are traveling, but also I think there's going to be a real need for things like semi-trucks. They're going to need to charge somewhere, and I think that would be the perfect place to put the infrastructures around here so that folks can then go on to Canada, or folks coming down from Canada can, you know, this will be a natural draw for that. And then as far as the town goes, we're looking to go electric, but it can be frustrating sometimes because there's not a lot of high capacity vehicles. You know, in Hartford, any vehicle that gets, we have a very strict climate action plan, and any vehicle, any purchase that gets made over $4,001, I need to review it to make sure there's not an option that's more in line with our climate action plan. But I get these requests from the DPW for dualies that can tow X amount of weight, or for large scale mowers where I can't really find an option, an all electric option. And I said this in the last portion, you know, I like being an early adopter, but I want to make Hartford number 2 because the number 1 guy always gets the issues. So I wanted to make sure that we're going for vetted things. And it's hard once we get beyond passenger vehicles for that kind of stuff. Our police did make a commitment to going all hybrid when they can. But the last time I talked to well, it was the previous chief, he said, you know, there's no police rated all electric vehicles yet. So he was concerned about that. You know, and then again, the other thing we always have to think about is if something goes wrong, where do we need to go? I mean, I have a Tesla, and a couple of years ago we had a shock issue, and you would think a strut would be something Tesla would have figured out. But when we took it to the dealership, they said, you know, this is our 6th edition of this strut, but I had to take it down to Boston because there was nobody in this area. So I try to think a lot about that when we start looking at vehicles. Also try to think about, you know, make sure we have similar manufacturers just because of the proprietary equipment involved in fixing them. So this is the kind of stuff that I spend a lot of time thinking about in Hartford. And then the other thing that I'm trying to do in Hartford is push energy building code. Believe it or not, Vermont does have energy code, just nobody enforces it. So I at least make sure the guys fill out the right form when they come in, which is about the extent of all I can do. But one thing that I've been asking every builder to do is please run conduit to your garage for a charger, because you don't, you know, somebody's going to need an electric vehicle in 3 years, and they're going to curse your name. They got to go dig up the drywall. You know, buildings are so much simpler to work in before there's walls up. So you know, and most people are pretty open to that because I'm not asking them to install a charger, just the way to get the wiring there when that needs to happen. So that's a really brief overview of what we're looking at in Hartford.
Yeah, a lot going on. I'm proud to say that Lebanon was the first community in New Hampshire and one of the first in the nation to adopt building codes that require electric vehicle charging in new multi-unit housing and commercial establishments, et cetera. So that will be happening here more. And you mentioned semi-trucks. I just wanted to mention that there is a new movement coming out of California to electrify, and I forget the term they use, but you know, all the delivery trucks that bring us stuff, you know, especially in a rural area from Amazon or wherever you order it from, all of that needs to go electric. How are we going to do that? That's a big challenge. There's a lot of ways people could plug in if you're more interested in this, but we'll get to that. Hanover, what's happening, Ben?
Well, the town of Hanover adopted energy goals in 2017. They're ready for 100 goals that include 100% renewable electricity by 2030 and 100% renewable heat and transportation by 2050. So that's the goal we're sort of working towards. And I think we see the two main sort of stumbling blocks to get to that goal are, first of all, education about EVs, and secondly, chargers. Education about EVs is what this event is about today. But even today, I talked to somebody in the parking lot who said, well, EVs are too small for me, and they're not fast enough. And anybody who has one knows neither one of those is true. So there's still a need for a lot of education. Even a lot of my friends think, oh, there's not an EV that would work for me. So education and then chargers, that's really lots of people's reluctance to get an EV. So within the town, we're sort of looking at three prongs to that, to have more chargers available at rental units, apartment buildings, multi-unit residences, and at employers, so employees can charge at work as well as at home, and then in public places. Yeah, we discussed getting a building code so that multi-unit apartments would have to install infrastructure at least to have charging available. But the discussion that happened in Hanover was that everybody's doing that already because they realize they're in a few years they're not going to be able to rent units if they don't have EV charging for them. But people in rental units can also charge at a public charger if they're nearby or while they go do something. So those would be in public lots for people who are either traveling long distances. We put in DC fast chargers for people that would draw people into Hanover to and shop or visit retail places while they're there, or for people who are spending time in town. And we consider participating in a grant program that Jessica Wilcox talked about earlier in this room today, CFI, which is not Clean Fuels Initiative, it's
Charging and fueling infrastructure.
Charging and fueling infrastructure. In the state, she mentioned the state has submitted a grant to develop a statewide community program for that Hanover would expect to apply to locate chargers in 7 different municipal lots that would be available to the public. So, I mean, what we're looking for the future is 100% of the cars in Hanover being EVs by 2050, we hope. And we're starting to get there. In 2022, we had 232 registered EVs in Hanover. That's up from 120 2 years before, so doubling in almost 2 years. It's unclear if that rate is exponential or linear, but it is increasing, and it's potential to be exponential just because the more EVs are around, the more people will see them and realize that they will meet their needs. And one final thing I would sort of see in the future, one of the main problems with renewable energy generation is it's generated when the winds are blowing or the sun is out, and there's limited capacities to store that energy so it can be used when it's needed. But actually that storage capacity already exists in all the EV cars that are all across the country. So I think something that's coming in the future is vehicle to grid charging, where a charger can go 2 ways. When you plug your car in at home, it can power the grid for a few hours when there's peak demand, and then recharge your car overnight so it's fully charged in the morning. And that's already, you can get chargers like that, and the Nissan Leaf, I think, is capable of doing that. But I'm sure in the future, more and more cars will be able to do that, and presumably that would be supported by utilities and the people who need to spread out that charge over time. So I think that's something we have to look forward to in the future. And so that's what I see is happening in Hanover.
Thank you, Ben. And before I go on to what's happening in Lebanon, I just want to get a quick go round. If anyone here or listening online wants to get more involved in this and help our communities plan, we all have been meeting for a couple of years now. Pete Kobaki in Hanover and some of us to talk regionally. Like, let's not compete for all this federal money that's coming at us to put in these charges. Let's figure out where it would make the most sense to put them as the Upper Valley. We tried to do that in creating a charging and fueling infrastructure grant, a CFI grant, and we just didn't have the time or capacity to do it. Lebanon ended up putting in its own grant application, but I want that effort to continue. So in Lebanon, if you want to get involved, the way is through the EV subcommittee, which you can find at lebanonnh.gov/EV, lebanonnh.gov/EV, or through Sustainable Lebanon, which is an independent nonprofit group of people who want to help us accelerate towards sustainability. If people want to get involved and help you move your communities forward, what would they do?
Sustainablehanover.org is the organization, and I think that's also the name of the email to just say you're interested in helping.
In Hartford, we have the Hartford Energy Commission, which meets fourth Thursday of every month. And we have the Climate Action Steering Team, which meets every third Wednesday of the month. And I just want to be clear that even though we're in different states, when you were talking about the collaboration, that was, Hartford was included in that. So we're trying to make it truly a regional thing and not just stop at the river.
Well, it's the best way to support public transit is to use it. So, and it's easier now than ever because we just added evening and Saturday service and also more midday service between White River Junction and Hanover. So just hop on board. There's some great materials on our website, advancedtransit.com, on how to use the bus. And, if you really want to ride the EV, you can always call in and we can tell you where it's at that moment and you can track it down. So.
And I should point out that almost every community in New Hampshire and Vermont has a energy committee or an energy commission or something.
Can I add something?
Yes, please. Then to introduce yourself.
I'm Nate Reichert. I'm the Director of Planning and Development for the City of Lebanon. I would also add to not only working as far as through our committees like LEAC, also look at possibilities of serving on the planning board or serving on the zoning board, because a lot of the policy development in this area goes through or comes from or is interpreted by those committees. And if we don't have strong voices that are advocating for sustainability and EV infrastructure, I know when we have an application coming from the planning board, the EV infrastructure piece of it is going to be key as we move forward. It's now regulation. It's now in the rules. We now have to have people to interpret that in a way that gives us a positive impact to the community. So I think it's not only just the traditional thinking of a little bit more out of the box and saying we need to have folks that are at the cutting edge of this topic, serving on all of our boards and commissions so that we infuse it into how we do our business as a government.
So true. I think a theme from all of us is we're promoting civic engagement. Get involved. That's how we make a difference, especially in our smaller communities. You can have a huge impact as an individual if you get involved. So 2 words about Lebanon, and then we can take any questions or discussion. We've had an active EV subcommittee for a while now, and I've been here in Lebanon 2.5 years now. I moved here from California. I'm a climate migrant. I moved here because of all the horrible fire smoke that is a part of daily life. There's now a smoke season. There's not just the 4 seasons, there's a smoke season. So that's why I'm here. And I immediately got involved in the EV subcommittee. And we did a number of things. I live in a condo community, and I've spent 2.5 years trying to get an EV charger there. It's really hard, even if you have the experience I do. So the point is to get them in there when they're built, which we succeeded in doing with the help of allies in the planning department. Now the talk this year is all about workplace charging because there's federal programs being funded towards that. If maybe you were here earlier when the Empower program representatives were speaking from Vermont and New Hampshire. And one place that I'm getting involved in now, there's a ton of money that's been coming out for the last couple of years for school buses and get them off of diesel and off of gas and clean up the air that those kids are breathing. I mean, there's been studies showing the rate of asthma goes down when you switch to an electric school bus. We've been reaching out to the school district and have always been rebuffed or ignored, but there's a new superintendent in Lebanon, and I reached out to her. I have an appointment with her near the end of October. The latest round of federal grants is amazing for school buses, not just the buses, but the chargers. They're going to pay for almost everything. There's not even a match. The city doesn't have to put in 20% or 10%. The deadline for applications is January 31st. And oh my gosh, they're going to pay for so much. So I just have to get someone in the school district to realize this is going to save you a ton of money and be good for the kids and be good for your budget because you're going to spend less on fuel, et cetera. And work with us and we will help you do a grant. So if anyone listening to this wants to help our school district get clean and green and sustainable, contact me. I want to work with you. But this past year, I helped to do a federal grant, my first one, for the charging and fueling infrastructure for Lebanon. And I think we have time. I'm going to run through this quite fast. It's a $5.2 million grant. And they specifically want to help rural areas like ours and underserved communities. So I'm going to show you what we put into this grant. We should hear in the coming month whether we get any of this money or not and what of this we'll be able to do. But I want to show you how our thinking went. A huge emphasis from the federal government is on serving underserved communities. And the northern census tract of Lebanon is an underserved community, underserved for EVs, underserved financially. It's a prime place to put some of these chargers. So I'm just going to run through and let you see what they are. So what we try to do is place them where they could be available to lower income people, people who are transportation challenged. And part of the idea is if we put chargers near, say, affordable housing, these are residents who maybe couldn't afford an electric vehicle up front. Maybe they can. The prices are coming down. The Chevy Bolt is very reasonable now when you add on the financial incentives. But we hope to, if we get these chargers installed, we're going to look into starting an EV car share. Now, if any of you have used Zipcar or one of these other car shares, the idea is you become a member, and when you need a car, you book it on your app or on your phone, and then you go use it for a couple hours, and you pay for that, but there's going to be income gradations and lower costs for lower income residents. So that's kind of the way we're thinking, partly of where we're placing these chargers. Let's run through it, shall we, Ted? Next one. So the first one, so we identified 3 areas. One is downtown. There are no EV chargers downtown. It's an EV charging desert. The second one is kind of what I call northern Lebanon. We'll get to that. And then the third one is West Lebanon near Main Street. There are fast chargers in southwest Lebanon outside, not Target, Walmart. Thank you. I wanted to say Walgreens. So this is one of the ones downtown. This is where we want to put a fast charger with 2 ports and a level 2 charger with 2 ports. This is 2 Mascoma Street, which is the old, what's the name of that market there that was there? Village Market, the old Village Market site. And developers got permission to build almost 200 apartments there. Well, if you have EV chargers, and especially an EV car share, not all of those people need to have cars. Right? The bus goes right to downtown Lebanon. You could have an EV car share. So that's one site. Next. Also downtown, you might have seen the SolarFlect solar panels, the trackers out in the exhibit area. They were baking cookies. Did you know this? Good to know if they haven't run out of batter, they're still churning them out. And this is off the grid, solar powered, and it has 4 level 1 charge ports, the kind that runs off like a typical 110 outlet. So if we had 2 of these in the parking lot, people who work downtown could park their EV for the 8 hours or whatever they're at work and get, maybe 40 miles of charge totally free. It's from the sun. So that's another thing we want to do. This is the third site downtown, which is Parker Street Parker Street at Spencer Street. It's kind of over there by CCBA. If you're coming from Colburn Park towards the CCBA, those blue, the blue area on the right would be 4 level 2 charge ports. This is surrounded by affordable housing. Almost every building that you see a hint of in this picture is affordable housing. There's more around the corner, and there's more that's probably going to be built. I should say any yellow squares you see, if we get the money to do this, as long as you're tearing up the pavement, you're going to put in that conduit, the wiring, the whatever, to add more chargers in the future if you want to, instead of having to tear up the pavement again. So that's downtown. Next one, Ted. Not a great picture. It's just a parking lot. But outside the co-op, the Lebanon co-op, in the Centera development, office development, we want to put a fast charger with 2 ports and 2 level 2 ports. Right near there, I mean, that parking lot is surrounded by more than 1,700 multi-unit housing units. Almost none of them have EV charging. One is run by, I think, Dartmouth College on Mount Support Road on the north end. Summit on Juniper. Everyone wants to say Summit on Jupiter, but it's Summit on Juniper. They added 2 level 2 chargers, but they didn't stripe them or paint them or put signs. And so gas cars park there a lot. I mean, it makes no sense. But you need to give those people access to charging, especially a fast charger. If you had a fast charger, you could go plug in your car. By the time you do your shopping or go to the liquor store or the pharmacy, you come out and you're probably charged. So that could help all those people. Next. Also in Northern Lebanon is Dartmouth Hitchcock Medical Center. They already have more than 24 charge ports, and they give the electricity away for free to their employees as an incentive to get people to come out here and work. We're going to help them upgrade a lot of those to better, faster intertied chargers and add a whole bunch more. Those are level 2 and a couple of the Solaflect EV chargers. Now, we may not pick Solaflect as a company. I'm just using them as an example, but those off-grid solar chargers are what we're going to look for. We're going to put out a call for bids from them or other companies. All right, let's go to West Lebanon. Next slide. There we go. Oh, that's just another picture of Dartmouth Hitchcock, I think. Okay, you see Main Street on the left there. The Mascoma Bank parking lot is a pretty big parking lot. You can't see it, but right at the top of the picture would be Mascoma Bank. And we want to put another fast charger because there's no fast charger right there, and a couple of level 2 ports. Because then, if we got the grant to do all of this, there would be 4 areas with fast chargers. There would be Southwest Lebanon, Northwest Lebanon, Downtown Lebanon, and North near Centera and DHMC. And they would all have fast chargers. Next slide. Right next to the Mascoma Bank lot is Tracy Community Housing, run by Twin Pines. They have a beautiful solar canopy on their building, and we want to add 4 level 2 spaces there in hopes of starting a EV car share. Also in that downtown spot on Parker Street, the one surrounded by affordable housing, and at the 2 Mascoma development where the fast charger is, we'd love to have EV car shares at all those sites. But first, we need the chargers. Yes, thank you, Tad. So they have a bike parking area for their housing, and the grant includes adding electric bike charging there underneath their solar canopy. That would working with Vital Communities, who talked about e-bikes at an earlier session here. Okay, and then we got one more. Then the Village at Crafts Hill has more than 100 units of affordable housing in West Lebanon. Again, we want to put in 4 level 2 chargers, which could contain a car share potentially. So then you open up EV possibilities for a lot more low-income people and have them spread all over the community where, say, if someone goes to West Lebanon to spend some time at the library or go to a restaurant, or, you know, if you're going to the snacks bar near in Centera next to the co-op, you could plug into a level 2 or a level 3. So that's our grant. Wish us luck. We don't know if we're going to get any of this. I think that's all I have, Tad. Is that right? Oh, so this just shows you the 3 areas. Any of those green dots kind of, there's downtown, the North Lebanon, and the West Lebanon. And that purple area is the census tract that is an EV, not deprived, but underserved, an EV underserved area, and it's a more of a low income area in general. So that's what we've been working on, but you can see, you know, there is a fair amount of detail that can go into a federal grant like that, but the money's there, you know, and if we can either plan regionally, there's another round of funding, CFI grant funding. The deadline is next May. We need to be talking together now and planning what we can do, what makes sense, or do we want to do it individually? But the communication is key so that we make sense for the whole region. Any questions or comments or thoughts about what's happening in the Upper Valley? Or anyone online? I guess we just have us here, right?
I could say a bit more about the other grant we're going for.
Yes, go Ted, and introduce yourself.
Ted Montgomery, Energy and Facilities Manager for the city. The city is writing a grant to acquire 2 new electric streets, pure electric. And they plan is to charge one of them at the DPW garage and the other at the landfill behind the meter. So it would be powered from the landfill gas to energy project. And we've reached out to neighboring communities to say, hey, one of the big issues with transitioning your fleet to electric, especially your emergency response fleet, is if the grid goes down, how do you charge your police cruisers? And our departments have all said, this is an issue, this is an issue. And so we are planning for that spot, and we've gotten really great response from local communities to make it available to other towns, Hartford, Hanover, New London, Plainfield, Enfield, so they can charge their police cruisers or their ambulances or whatever that are battery electric in the eventuality of a grid come. So the street sweepers are about $1 million a piece, a little less than 900,000, and the charging infrastructure for that is about $2.6 million grant. Rebecca Owens is the primary on this from the planning office, with the fleet superintendent, and get it in by October 10th.
All right. Well, on that note, I hope we've inspired you to join us in whatever capacity you have to accelerate the transition to electric vehicles. Thanks for joining us, you guys.